Hello, Professor Matthew Rotella here, and in this tutorial we're still UV unwrapping, still working with the acoustic guitar, and this time what I want to focus on is the tuning knob, which I didn't take the time to make holes for in the head as I should, and I didn't properly model this coming out of the tuning knob either. This would definitely be some C+ worthy work as far as how I formed these tuning knobs, if I were to give myself a grade on them. But regardless, that's not the focus. I really want to focus on, UV unwrapping, and more specifically I want to focus on UV unwrapping just this shape in particular here on the tuning nuts. I'm just going to hide everything else. And ideally, you would UV unwrap this before you make all the duplicates of it even. That way all of your duplicates would have their own, all your duplicates would have the UVs of this one. And same thing goes for anything that gets duplicated down the line, such as the frets that I have, which also are C+ work at best because they're just cylinders. I didn't shave down the sides like real frets do, which they're shaved down so you don't cut your dang fingers. But regardless, again, I'm really looking to focus on this shape here, and I'll even just hide the rest of the nuts so I can just look at just the one. Anyway, UV unwrapping this bad boy. When we're, luckily it's pretty cylindrical, so I can just use cylindrical unwrapping, although I want to pay specific attention to this hole here, which should be UV unwrapped into its own shell when doing this. So what I would do, let's bring up my UV editor, and got these guys here, got the hole, and this I could even, I like to do a lot of planar projecting when I'm projecting my UVs for whatever fits. That or I do a camera based if it's at an odd angle. A lot of times that's what just helps me get. So that should be a top down from Y. And now the part of this hole that you'd be least likely to see is this top edge here. So that's definitely where I would want to put my cut in my UVs. See doopsie. And then I'm going to take this UV shell. And if I want, I could even select this edge, and I could use my my pinning and pin that in place so that it UV unfolds, which I can do unfold along U. Oh, pardon me. I need to select the shell first. Unfold along U, and then that'll unfold nice and even like that, and it has these cutouts here because it is in fact curved inwards going along here, so that it continues this smooth curve going all the way around through here. Anyway, that's the shell, and I can even get this edge again, which pinning certain things can let me just hit unpin all. I didn't need to select the edge. Anyway, pinning certain things can really help when you're going about and moving things, and this doesn't have to be so large. It's ultimately going to be relatively small. And now what we'll probably want to do is do cylindrical unwrapping for most of this. Now, some of this, like you can see, by default, my cylinder is even already split into 3 shells, which I could likely just keep these default UVs from this, but if I want to check my distortion, I can assign existing material, which should be Lambert 2. And it looks like my, yeah, which they are rather distorted. If I want to square things up, they should be more like so to reduce distortion. And I'll just scale them back down. And now, what I could do is I could select these top-down things, and but you know what I'm going to try to do is I'm actually just going to try and select all 3 of these UV shells and just see what I get if I just straight up UV cylindrical unwrap all of this. And I can see that I get a rather bit of a mess. Now let's see what happens if I hit unfold, and yeah, I'm getting rather odd and squiggly. So sometimes it's worth checking if you could do something the quick and easy way before going about it a different way. Now this here, what I should probably do is go around and make a cut here and a cut here. Now, if I do UV shell and select this UV shell, I should probably cylindrically unwrap this all on its own, cut, cylindrical, and I might end up giving myself more shells than I wanted, but let's see. I'll hit unfold along U, and I will normalize this piece, get them in there. This shell, what I'll do is I'll just do a top-down planner, so I get myself a circle, and then I'm going to want to unfold this so that it straightens out my distortion a bit more, and I want to have this assigned to the whole object. And now, theoretically, the shells that I'm relatively done working with out of there. So it's kind of hard to see things against the checker. Now, theoretically, since this is all one metal, in a way I don't necessarily have to UV unwrap it. Same thing goes for like the plastic of the tuning nuts, but or the bolts rather. Either way, where I could just put a solid colored material on it and then do like a noise utility based bump map. But what I want to do is I want to UV unwrap this so I can in fact put scratches on this, which is also something that I plan on doing within this tutorial. And now for this last final shell, I think I can just keep this as it is and hit unfold, and you can see I can get a reasonably consistent circle out of that. There's enough space between these that the UVs can pinch and work as needed, and then this just stay as it is also. And now let's do this. For now, I'll just put Lambert 1 back on this guy. And now let's start gathering my shells and laying them all out. So I'll just hit layout to get my automatic guy. Now this guy should rightly take up the most space on the UV map, so that's, you know what, so that's pretty good for him, but these guys over here could be laid out a little bit better. Now this and this are pretty small, so it's fine that they're relatively small over here. Okay. Orient that. Move him over yonder, over yonder. I can move this over. Now this could maybe stand to be a bit bigger, but the reason I move those over is because I can make this a touch larger also. And make this a touch larger. And the more space we can get, the better, even if it is rather minimal. Okie doke. And now this is what I'll work with. Okay, so let's get my UV snapshot. Select my UVs, image, UV snapshot. I want it to be a PNG so I can see through it. A 1920 HD square sounds fine, and I'll do tuning, knob, UVs. And that's just fine and dandy, which if I hit browse I can see I'm putting into my source images in my folder. And I'll hit apply and close, and I can see from my output down at the bottom that I have in fact saved said file. Now I can bring this into Photoshop, so I'll hit open. Let's see what we got. We got my default source images, and there it is, tuning knob UVs.png. Open her up. And it doesn't look like much against this transparent background, but if I make a second layer and I just go ahead and fill that with black, you can see what we're working with here. Now, to make my scratch map, what I will do is, well, ultimately, I want my scratches to go inwards, so I want to paint black on white, not the other way around, but I can use this to generally see where what I'm working with is, but regardless, perhaps I'll just hide this for now and fill this layer with white. Or actually I should rightly fill it with a 50% gray. So saturation, brightness, saturation should be 0, and I should fill this with a 50% gray, and because of the way that bump maps function, this way I can also see my UVs a little bit still, at least. They get a bit lost in the sauce because they are snapshotted relatively thinly, but regardless I can see what I'm doing, because 50% gray means that your surface shouldn't appear to be raised or lowered at all when you work with a bump map. And white will raise a surface and black will have a surface go in. So now, if I make my scratch layer, which I should be naming all of my layers, but regardless, and you can get grunge maps, or you can multiply on pictures of scratches. There's plenty of ways that you can do it, but that includes just using brushes here in Photoshop, which I'll just put this to black, and there are all sorts of things that you can use with your various brush options. Some stuff that work well, you got dry media brushes. Let's see, we got natural brushes are good. Let's see, I remember there being let me see, pardon me. We got splatters, that's good for grunge maps. That's not what I'm working with right now per se. Pardon me, I'm looking. I know there's a crosshatch brush. Oh, here we go. Yeah, like I can make some cross hatch looking guys like this, get some scratches like that going around, and that can make for some good scratch looking stuff. Now this is probably overdoing it a little bit, and I can go in here, I can do things like wet edges so that it tapers off a little bit as I go through and make various things. And then also things that are good if you're looking to make various scratches are if you load up the legacy brushes, which you can load various sets of brushes by going into your settings, and there's this gear here, and or rather, cancel, yeah, and there's this gear here. You can import brushes, or you can select from the list. You got your legacy brushes here. Anyway, what I want from the legacy brushes are these calligraphy brushes, which these are good for things because they give you this little brush control right here, which perhaps I'll go for not the oval. Let's go. I definitely want it flat or something like that. Yeah, take it back. Give me this one. Anyway, and I can go into my brush settings and I can limit the number of bristles so they're more sparse. I can lengthen the bristles. I can make them thicker. I can do a flat fan so they're more spread out. And that, but I can reduce my thickness quite a bit, so those are going to be a bit much, but it's okay. And increase my stiffness, and this will give me like a bunch of them, and I can reduce to just single ones or 3, and make various stabs at things like this. And if you have a tablet, all of this will come out looking even nicer, and you can play with all these things. Anyway, I'll just call this a scratch map. It's a little wonky to say the least, but this should grunge things up nice enough. and you'll see how it looks. Okay. There we go. So we want that. We want to make sure that we hide our layer with our UVs on it. You definitely want to keep track of the layer that has your UVs. Anyway, file, save as. I want to save it on my computer, please. Save it as a PNG. And I'll do tuning knobs, scratch, map, save, medium, sure, sounds good. And alright. Now let's get a quick lighting setup and make a shader. So if I just go into Arnold, which I'll be rendering in, I'll make a sky dome light. I'll put a texture file on this, so that I can just get some lighting real quick. I have this HDR image of a like a product photography studio. I'll open that bad boy up. Now I don't want the actual image to show up in my renders, so I'll change my settings on my skydome light shape. If I turn camera to 0, that means that the image will no longer show up in my renders. And now let's get a shader built. Let's see, just clear this out. Shader, AI standard surface. The color can stay as is. The metalness I'm gonna want to put up a decent bit. Just shove it all the way up is fine in this case. And alright. Now down my geometry is where I can put my bump map on. File. And go my file node there. Select said file. And tuning knob, scratch map, open. And now, if I select this, assign material to selection. Alright, now let's see what we're working with here. Arnold, render. And you can see that my scratches are rather deep, to say the least. Let me see. Which I can go back to my hyper shade, and I can make the beat not so deep by reducing the bump depth to probably a tenth of what they are, which is more reasonable. And also I can make them be less deep by just not painting them as black when I paint my scratches in Photoshop, because black is an all the way indent, where if I painted them less aggressively, then I would get less aggressive bump results. Let's see, these render quick enough. Let's up our render resolution here. Maybe get something where we can really get in there. So, not the best scratch map in the world, but I also didn't put that much time into it. Main point being that you can see how it functions. And some parts of it are looking reasonably decent. And like I like these scratches here in particular. Those are looking nice. Well, whatever. That'll about wrap it up for this tutorial. I hope you learned, hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.